Children, now this is the second part of your lesson, the enemy. The first part finished where Sadao, Hoki and Hannah are having a conversation whether the white man, would survive or not. And Hannah feels that he must die, and Sadao is also wondering whether he will die or not. So, we are going to begin with the second part now, children. This man must have extraordinary vitality, or he would have been dead by now. See, he says that this man has some extraordinary vitality. Otherwise, all that he has suffered, he should have been dead by now. But then he was very young, perhaps not yet 25. You mean die from the operation? Hannah asked. Yes, Sadao said. Hannah considered this doubtfully, and when she did not answer, Sadao turned away. At any rate, something must be done with him, he said, and first he must be washed. He went quickly out of the room, and Hannah came behind him. She did not wish to be left alone with the white man. He was the first he had seen since she left America, and now he seemed to have nothing to do with those whom she had known there. Here he was her enemy, a menace, living or dead. So she says that even though she had been in America, but now she had nothing to do with the Americans, and here the Americans were just his enemy. And they were a menace, means a danger, whether alive or dead, this man was a danger to them. And she was scared to be left alone with him, so as Dr. Sadao went out, she too followed him out. She turned to the nursery and called, Yumi! But the children heard her voice, and she had to go in for a moment and smile at them and play with the baby boy, now nearly 3 months old. Over the baby's soft black hair, she motioned with her mouth, Yumi, come with me. I will put the baby to bed, Yumi replied. He is ready. She went with Yumi into the bedroom next to the nursery and stood with the boy in her arms while Yumi spread the sleeping quilts on the floor and laid the baby between them. Then Hannah led the way quickly and softly to the kitchen. The two servants were frightened at what their master had just told them. The old gardener, who was also a house servant, pulled a few hairs on his upper lip. The master ought not to heal the wound of this white man, he said bluntly to Hannah. The white man ought to die. First he was shot, then the sea caught him and wounded him with her rocks. If the master heals what the gun did and what the sea did, they will take revenge on us. Now these Japanese are supposed to be superstitious people also. And this old man, who is this? He is the gardener. The old gardener, he was in a very thoughtful state. What shows that he was thoughtful? That he was pulling few hairs on his upper lip. Now he says that master should not treat this man because this man was meant to die. First the bullet tried to kill him. So the white man ought to die. First he was shot, so the bullet tried to kill him, and then the sea tried to kill him. And now if the master tries to heal him, these things are going to take revenge on us. He says on us. Why is he saying on us? Because they are a part of the family. All these working staff, all the servants are part of Dr. Sadao's family. So whatever Dr. Sadao does, the whole family is going to suffer. I will tell him what you say, Hannah replied courteously. But she herself was also frightened, although she was not superstitious as the old man was. Could it ever be well to help an enemy? So she says that she just courteously tells him that I will surely let Dr. Sadao know what you feel, but she herself was not at all superstitious about such a thing. Nevertheless, she told Yumi to fetch the hot water and bring it to the room where the white man was. Nevertheless means, in spite of the gardener saying so, she still told Yumi to fetch hot water and bring it to the room where the white man was. She went ahead and slid back the partitions. Sadao was not yet there. Yumi, following, put down her wooden bucket. Then she went over to the white man. When she saw him, her thick lips folded themselves into stubbornness. "I have never washed a white man," she said, "and I will not wash so dirty a one now." So stubbornness here shows that she is adamant, she is fiercely determined that she is not going to touch this white man. She is not going to wash him. Hannah cried at her severely, "You will do what your master commands you." There was so fierce a look of resistance upon Yumi's round, dull face that Hannah felt unreasonably afraid. After all, if the servants should report something that was not as it happened. "Very well," she said with dignity. So Hannah said with dignity when she saw that when she saw that Yumi was adamant not to wash, so she, with dignity, told her, "Very well, you understand we only want to bring him to his senses so that we can turn him over as a prisoner." "I will have nothing to do with it," Yumi said. "I am a poor person and it is not my business." So she is still going on refusing that "I am not going to do anything to this man." "Then please," Hannah said gently, "return to your own work." So Hannah very gently told her to go back, and she did not force her to do what Yumi did not want to do. At once Yumi left the room, but this left Hannah with the white man alone. She might have been too afraid to stay had not her anger at Yumi's stubbornness now sustained her. Sustained her means kept her going. So children, whenever we are angry with something or someone, the speed, the adrenaline that flows makes us do our work faster. Now you see, sometime back when Sadao Hoki left the room, she was scared to be alone with the white man and she went behind him. But now, when Yumi has left the room, she has not left the room. She is alone with the white man, but her anger has sustained her. Her anger at Yumi's stubbornness has sustained her. So she is still in the room. "Stupid Yumi," she muttered fiercely, angrily. "Is this anything but a man? And a wounded, helpless man?" So she's saying, why is Yumi talking of this man as a white man? Why can't she just consider him as just any wounded man, wounded and helpless man? In the conviction of her own superiority, she bent impulsively and untied the knotted rugs that kept the man covered. When she had his breast bare, she dipped the small clean towel that Yumi had brought into the steaming hot water and washed his face carefully. The man's skin, though rough with exposure, was of a fine texture and must have been very blonde when he was a child. So she starts cleaning the man, and she bent impulsively means she, in her anger, she just impulsively, getting motivated by her anger, started untying the rugs. The knotted rugs means all the rags that the man was in. She started to untie them and uncovered him to clean him up. And the man, as she cleaned his face, she saw that had a very fine texture, and the man must have been a very blonde boy when he was a child, means very golden, very golden. So she knows how Americans are, so she knows how he must be when he was a kid. While she was thinking these thoughts, though not really liking the man better now that he was no longer a child, she kept on washing him until his upper body was quite clean. But she dared not turn him over. Where was Sadao? Now her anger was ebbing. Ebbing means slowly going away. And she was anxious again. And she rose, wiping her hands on the wrong towel. Anxious again, she was getting worried again. And in her worry, she did not realize she wiped her hands on the wrong towel. Then, lest the man be chilled, she pulled the quilt over him. Lest the man means, what if the man becomes very cold? She put the quilt over him. Sadao, she called softly. He had been about to come in when she called. His hand had been on the door, and now he opened it. She saw that he had brought his surgeon's emergency bag and that he wore his surgeon's coat. All this shows that he was ready to operate. "You have decided to operate," she cried. "Yes," he said shortly. He turned his back to her and unfolded a sterilized towel upon the floor of the tokonoma alcove and put his instruments out upon it. Tokonoma is a niche or a small corner, an alcove in a Japanese home for displaying a flower arrangement, kakemono, or other piece of art. So it is a small place, like we have a fireplace. Fireplace is called a fireplace, but that is a niche inside. It's a place carved in where you can burn a fire and you have a chimney above it. But this is not a fireplace, but in a similar way, a space cut in the wall where they would, and with a little high altar where they could display the things that they wanted to display. "Fetch towels," he said. So not answering her, he just told her what he wanted her to do, and he wanted her to bring towels. She went obediently, but how anxious now, to the linen shelves and took out the towels. There ought also to be old pieces of matting so that the blood would not ruin the fine floor covering. She went out to the back veranda where the gardener kept strips of matting with which to protect delicate shrubs on cold nights, and took an armful of them. But when she went back into the room, she saw this was useless. The blood had already soaked through the packing in the man's wound and had ruined the mat under him. "Oh, the mat!" she cried. "Yes, it is ruined," Sadao replied, as though he did not care. "Help me to turn him," he commanded her. Now he was a true doctor. He was a true surgeon, and he was very true to the oaths that he had taken. Now for him, the matting getting spoiled did not really matter. In a very matter-of-fact way, he said, "Yes, it is ruined." And then he just asked Hannah to help him turn the man. She obeyed him without a word, and he began to wash the man's back carefully. "Yumi would not wash him," she said. "Did you wash him then?" Sadao asked, not stopping for a moment his swift, concise movements. Concise means precise, to the point, very correct. "Yes," she said. He did not seem to hear her, but she was used to his absorption when he was at work. Used to his absorption means she was used to how absorbed he would be in his work when he was working. So she was very used to this. She wondered for a moment if it mattered to him what was the body upon which he worked so long, as it was for the work he did so excellently. So it means that she just wondered whether the man being American really mattered to him, because he was just bothered about the work that Dr. Sadao was doing. Nothing else mattered to him, because he was an excellent doctor. So I'll read the lines again. She wondered for a moment if it mattered to him what was the body upon which he worked so long, as it was for the work he did so excellently. "You will have to give the anesthetic if he needs it," he said. "I?" she repeated blankly. "But never have I." She said, I have never given anesthesia earlier." "It is easy enough," he said impatiently. Why impatiently? Because he does not have anyone to help him, and he needs help. He needs, because his hands are full, he is working on the man, and he needs someone to help him wherever and however he needs help. He is taking out the packing now. He was taking out the packing now, and the blood began to flow more quickly. He peered into the wound with the bright surgeon's light fastened on his forehead. "The bullet is still there," he said with cool interest. "Now I wonder how deep this rock wound is. If it is not too deep, it may be that I can get the bullet. But the bleeding is not superficial." So he says that the bullet was still there, and if the cut is not too deep, he'll be able to take the bullet out. But then he says that the bleeding is also not very superficial. Superficial means it's not just coming from somewhere above. It seems to be coming from quite within. So the cut must be deep, not superficial. "He has lost much blood." At this moment, Hannah choked. He looked up and saw her face the color of sulfur. Sulfur is that pale yellow. So her face lost color means she was getting nauseous. She was feeling like puking. So she says, don't faint, he said sharply. He did not put down his exploring instrument. If I stop now, the man will surely die. She clapped her hands to her mouth and leaped up and ran out of the room. Outside in the garden, he heard her retching. Retching means vomiting. But he went on with his work. It will be better for her to empty her stomach, he thought. He had forgotten that, of course, she had never seen an operation. But her distress and his inability to go to her at once made him impatient and irritable with this man who lay like dead under his knife. Now, he loves his wife and he can see that his wife is suffering. He can see that his wife is vomiting, retching outside, and he is not able to leave this man and go and take care of his wife. So this is making him impatient and irritable, and he is unhappy that he is unable to go and take care of his wife. This man, he thought, there is no reason under heaven why he should live. Unconsciously, this thought made him ruthless, and he proceeded swiftly. In his dream, the man moaned, but Sadao paid no heed except to mutter at him. Now, Sadao was irritated by the fact that he was unable to tend to his wife who was retching outside, and in that irritation, his hands moved a little ruthlessly, means without feelings and in a very hasty manner, which caused some pain to the white man. And because of this movement of Dr. Sadao Hoki's hand, he felt pain, and in spite of being unconscious, he moaned. Moaning is when you make a sound, you are in pain, you make a sound, and that's called moaning. But Sadao Hoki paid no heed except to mutter to himself. He paid no heed, he paid no attention to this man's moaning. Groan, he muttered. Muttered, spoke to himself. Groan if you like. Groan means stay in pain and make those sounds. I don't care. I'm not doing this for my own pleasure. Now he's saying that I have to do it. It's not that it's my whim and my fantasy to do this on you that I'm doing. What is he doing? He's doing the surgery. So he says it's not just for my own pleasure that I'm doing what I'm doing to you. It is for your good. In fact, I do not know why I'm doing it. So he's saying that you are wounded. I am trying to heal you. And I am not sure myself why I'm trying to heal you, because you are an enemy. So all of this he is talking to himself, Dr. Sadao Hoki. The door opened and there was Hannah again. Where is the anesthetic? She asked in a clear voice. Sadao motioned with his chin. It is as well that you came back, he said. This fellow is beginning to stir. So he's saying, good that you have come back, because this man is beginning to come to his senses. To stir means to move. And when would one move? When one is coming to his senses. She had the bottle and some cotton in her hand. But how shall I do it? She asked. Obviously, she has never done it, and she said that earlier. She has never given anesthesia to any patient or anyone before. She had the bottle and some cotton in her hand, but how shall I do it? She asked. Simply saturate the cotton and hold it near his nostrils, Sadao replied, without delaying for one moment the intricate detail of his work. Intricate, the very minute detail of his work. When he breathes badly, move it away a little. So this is the intricate detail, that he just did not tell his wife to saturate the cotton, means to wet the cotton in the anesthesia, and he just did not tell her to hold it to his nose and keep holding it there. The intricate detail that the lesson talks of is that the doctor also made sure that he told his wife when the lady has to take the cotton away from the nostril of the unconscious or the man who was coming to his senses, because holding it for too long would result in the man dying. So He made sure of the intricate details of his work. She crouched close, crouched means bent down close, to the sleeping face of the young American. It was piteously thin face, she thought, and the lips were twisted. The man was suffering whether he knew it or not. Now, when someone suffers, then the suffering person tends to twitch or tighten the lips. So that is what this line here means, that his lips were twisted, obviously in pain, and the man was unconscious. Whether he realized it or not, he was in pain. So whether you are conscious, unconscious, your subconscious mind always knows. So the man was going through pain, and his expressions, the twisted lips, showed that his body felt the pain. That is, it registered the pain that he was going through. The man was suffering whether he knew it or not. Watching him, she wondered if the stories they heard sometimes of the sufferings of prisoners were true. Sufferings of prisoners, how badly they were treated. And this man also had proofs that he had been handled in a very, very rough manner. He had been tortured. So she is wondering of the stories that they'd heard of the sufferings of prisoners. They came like flickers of rumors told by word of mouth and always contradicted. Contradicted means one story told something, the other story told something else. There were contradictions, there were differences in the rumors. In the newspapers, the reports were always that wherever the Japanese armies went, the people received them gladly with cries of joy at their liberation. So she's saying that they portrayed as if Japanese were always welcomed wherever they went, and welcomed as if they were the ones to liberate them, to free them. But sometimes she remembered such men as General Takima, who at home beat his wife cruelly, though no one mentioned it now that he had fought so victorious a battle in Manchuria. So she's saying that there are men who have been extremely rough and extremely torturous to their own wives, and they have done great in the battles. If a man like that could be so cruel to a woman in his power, a wife is always in the power of the husband. So she says that a man that could be so cruel to a woman in his power, would he not be cruel to one like this, for instance? One like this, for instance, for example, one like this means this man here, a prisoner of war. So she's wondering that wouldn't such a man who could treat his wife so rudely, so roughly, so ruthlessly, wouldn't such a man treat this kind of a meek and dying man also in a ruthless and torturous way? She hoped anxiously that this young man had not been tortured. It was at this moment that she observed deep red scars on his neck just under the ear. So she was just wishing that if only he had not been tortured, and just then she noticed that yes, he had been tortured. There were marks of torture on his neck. Those scars, she murmured, lifting her eyes to Sadao, but he did not answer. At this moment he felt the tip of his instrument strike against something hard, dangerously near the kidney. So why was Sadao not focusing on what Hannah was saying? Because his complete attention was on the work that he was doing, and as he was maneuvering the wound, he just felt the tip of his instrument touch something hard, which was dangerously near the kidney. So this was the reason that he was just not following what Hannah was saying.